So I've gone on long enough. I want to open it up some questions and do my very best to answer them. And I really appreciate your time. Yes, sir.
As a state attorney general, what can you do at the state level if some horrendously restrictive federal law is passed?
You can challenge that law. You can challenge it. Let me give you an example. Anybody hear the Lopez decision?
Yes.
Okay, Lopez, what did it say? You couldn't have a firearm within so many meters or feet of a school. I think is what it said. And they challenged the law. They said it's unconstitutional, it violates the Commerce Clause. And the U.S. Supreme Court said, you're right, law gone. So you go to court, you challenge it. And it goes to another reason why you should support me for Attorney General. I've spent my life in courtrooms. That's what I do. As the U.S. Attorney, and I was a top federal law enforcement official for the whole western part of Virginia. By the way, I live in Roanoke. I didn't tell you that. Grew up up here, but I live down here. I go to court. I've done death penalty cases. I've done dope cases. I've done every kind of case you can imagine. I go, my last day as U.S. Attorney, I was before the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals, arguing a case. Some guy killed his wife and stuffed her in a trunk or something. Okay? That's what I do. So when I see a law passed like that, by this crew that's coming in, I'm going to challenge it, go to court. That's what we do. Yes, sir.
And if you're willing to challenge laws, what about the Gun-Free School Zone Act?
Tell me about that.
You can't, according to the federal law, there's an exemption for concealed carry permit holders, but still it's restrictive in that it disallows you from taking your firearm onto school property.
My sense of that is that in Virginia, we shouldn't have those kinds of laws. I don't think they're needed. It's a freedom issue. It's a constitutional right issue. Again, that's the point. Now, if I don't know if anybody's challenged this federal statute.
Well, they challenged it before in Lopez. They just Congress passed it again.
They changed the wording.
They changed the wording. And I don't know if that's been challenged. But I'm certainly will look at that, and if I view a federal law as being unconstitutional, I'll challenge it.
I'll also say that part of the problem with that law is that it only allows somebody with a permit from the state where the school is to carry on the school property. So if you're going visiting Utah and you got a Virginia permit, Utah is happy to have you there, but you can't go within 1,000 feet of the school.
Or if you're carrying legal without a permit, as you can in Virginia. My wife, if she's got a gun in the car, legally, if she's within 100 feet of a school, she's got a problem, technically. And it's not enforced very much, but it's there. I have a question,
yes,
as long as I'm the one talking.
Sure, sure.
Can you give me your opinion on Mr. Obama's choice of Eric Holder for Attorney General of the U.S.?
You know, I'm troubled by Mr. Holder's pick, primarily because of his role in the pardoning of Mark Rich. Mark Rich, as you know, is this financier who has been indicted on federal charges of tax evasion, and he was on the lam. He was fleeing. I mean, he was, you know, I've had these cases as U.S. Attorney where a guy flees to Europe or something, and we want to try to bring him back. And they always say, well, I'll come back if you guarantee no jail time. And I'm like, no. When you come back and answer these charges, then we'll take a look at all that. And so I think Mr. Holder's going to have some issues with 58 Democrat senators. I don't know if he can be stopped. But I have an issue with that in particular and his role in it. And I think he's going to have to answer some questions about what he said and when he said it, about his actual role in it. And so I'm deeply troubled by that.
But he actually opposed, he was on the opposing side in Heller.
That's correct. Well, he has, obviously, I mean, he has a lot of those issues as well. But as far as stopping him from becoming Attorney General, his veracity in answering those questions are what I think could be problematic for him. So, yes, sir.
Are there any existing Virginia statutes that you think violate the right to keep and bear arms? And if so, what will you do about it as Attorney General?
I don't know if there's any existing ones that I think violate the Constitution. But if you'll permit me to take a look at that and see if I can get, I know I filled out the surveys for this organization and for the Gun Owners Coalition, and so those are a public record, and you can certainly see my answers on those. Yes, sir.
Kind of piggyback on that question. I think this is a question on the survey as well. Arlington, Virginia requires fingerprint for a concealed carry permit.
Right.
Is that something you would actively fight against?
I just don't think we need to be fingerprinting folks to exercise
That is something you
constitutional
could
right.
perhaps look into as being unconstitutional?
I don't know if it would be unconstitutional. The question is, would it be inappropriate? And you know, unconstitutional, whether it has a rational basis and those things, But it goes back to the question, why would you need a fingerprint to exercise a constitutional right? I mean, I'm just not so sure that we need that. You also asked a question about the Real ID Act for others. I don't know if you didn't want you to cut you off. I think that the bill should be supported. We should not be funding Real IDs. We are a $3 billion hole, and I know Senator Cuccinelli and some others are going to have to go to Richmond next month and deal with these very tough decisions about where we cut. And the last thing we need to start doing is spending these tax dollars on an unfunded mandate for this.
Do you see that as just a money issue or
well,
issue?
Well, again, it kind of goes back to my test about the firearm issue on public safety. I think having this kind of universal ID card does not enhance public safety. The problem with that is then you only got to defraud one ID card and you're in. When you have 50 different ones throughout the country, it's a lot more difficult. So South Carolina, there's a letter by the governor of South Carolina that he wrote to the head of Homeland Security that really is a strong letter. Mark Sanford, his name. Great letter, and you really, I mean, I just agree with it point by point. It doesn't enhance public safety. It's too expensive. We don't need a national ID card. I'm very much opposed to that. And so there's a lot of reasons.
I have time for one quick question. Richard?
Yes, as Attorney General, if a suit was brought challenging the position of universities that you can't carry on campus, would you defend that as Attorney General? If you defend the universities?
You know,
two questions.
as Attorney General, you are the general counsel to the university. And so I need to take a look at what the role would be in that. My own view, and this is someone who had to respond to Virginia Tech. As United States Attorney, I got the call that this had occurred, and I was there that night, at that building. My view is that we don't need to restrict gun rights on college campuses. My personal view is that. But if I'm asked as the Attorney General, as a lawyer for the state, that may be something where I just believe that we have an obligation to the outside counsel to take a look at. I feel pretty strongly about that. That this is something, number one, it goes back to the constitutional and freedom issue, but also the public safety issue. Clearly, that rule, that law, and I think right now what it is an interpretation by the current Attorney General on how public universities can do that. But it doesn't enhance public safety. It certainly didn't in that sense.
It's a regulation.
Of the university. That's right. Right now, under state law, the Attorney General has said the president of these universities can have that restriction.
So you wouldn't actually have to defend it?
No.
You could say, I find it not defensible, or I find it not enforceable.
What I say right now is I find it inappropriate.
No, but as an Attorney General, you could say that. You wouldn't have to hire outside counsel.
What he said is that there was a lawsuit. Okay, great. Thanks.